Breaking news on a very busy night on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. We are looking at live pictures of the passage of holding two Trump officials in contempt, Wilbur Ross and Bill Barr. This is a story we've been following really for a long time, and this is a culmination tonight. Mr. Barr becomes only the second attorney general in American history to be held in contempt. Democrats say what you're witnessing here, this counting of this vote, strengthens their hand in litigation. This is over an issue where Donald Trump already lost before the Supreme Court. Let's listen in.
On the State of the Union for further consideration of the bill, H.R. 3494, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2020 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities.
And they're moving on here to the next order of business, formally showing that they've held these officials in contempt as far as the floor of the House is concerned. I want to bring in Matt Miller. He's a former official in the Obama administration under Eric Holder. And relevant here, when I mentioned this almost never happens, the last attorney general to be held in contempt was your boss, Eric Holder, under different circumstances. What does it mean to the Democrats that they have gone forward tonight with all this other debate on impeachment and this condemnation of President Trump last night to now also hold these two officials in criminal contempt?
Well, let me start with a slight correction, Ari, which is Bill Barr was the last AG to be held in contempt, although it was civil. He's been held in contempt once already, this Congress, in civil contempt, now criminal. So in some senses, he's a returning champion here.
Returning champion, I would quibble back with you and say it's only happened to two attorneys general,
yes,
the point being
right.
these
right.
two.
No, exactly. Look, the fact that he's been held in criminal contempt is largely symbolic. Criminal contempt would require for there to be any sort of enforcement mechanism for the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia to bring a case, try to prosecute the Attorney General. Her boss, she's obviously not going to do that, I think, just as the Attorney General in the Obama administration did not decide to prosecute Eric Holder. So that part's symbolic.
So let's pause on that. There's two pieces. You're saying if any normal random person, the classic example being my cousin Vinny, is held in contempt, you could go to jail that day. But because this is that super situation where the people who send you to jail are the people at the Justice Department run by Bill Barr, that's not going to happen. So having said that, what's the number two that does happen?
The number two piece is that this resolution authorizes the House to go to court to enforce their subpoenas against the Justice Department and the Commerce Department. And that's really what's at issue here is that, the Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said under oath to Congress that the reason he wanted to put this question on the census in the first place was because the Justice Department had asked him to do so for the purposes of helping enforce the Voting Rights Act. That later turned out to be not true. It was a lie. It seemed that he lied to Congress under oath. So what the House Oversight Committee is seeking is both documents and testimony, and that's important. They want people from the Justice Department to come in and testify about this so they can show that Wilbur Ross did in fact lie to it. And so what this does, it allows the House, to take the Commerce Department and the Justice Department to court. They have to kind of get in line with this long list of lawsuits that the House has teed up now against the administration, only one of which they've actually so far filed.
Well, you know what Wilbur Ross thinks about all this?
Yeah, I'm sure.
He thinks this is junk. Take a listen.
What is your expectation on this contempt issue?
Oh, this is just more political theater. It doesn't really have any substantive basis. The question of illegals was never going to be asked. The census was intending to ask the question, are you a citizen or are you not?
Right.
It never asked about legal status.
Matt.
Well, two things. One, the question of legal status is sort of it's not the thing that's at issue here. What's at issue is whether the Secretary of Commerce, whether Wilbur Ross came before Congress and lied under oath, and that's what the House Oversight Committee is seeking documents and interviews to prove. The second issue, I'd say, I think later in that interview, he talked about the fact that supposedly there are only 15 documents that are being withheld, and they've turned thousands over. Those 15 documents the House Oversight Committee says are very important. But the other thing that's critical is that they get testimony. And I will say, because you brought up the fact that my boss, Eric Holder, was held in contempt. That was at the end of a long investigation in which not only had we turned over documents, but we had allowed a number of officials, including senior political appointees, to come up to Congress and do interviews and in some occasions testify in open hearings. That's what this administration is denying so far, and that's why you see the House taking this step.
Well, I think that's an important procedural point. Both of these attorneys general, including the one you work for, have their critics and certainly disagree disagreements about the policies they pursued. I don't think anyone would say they pursued the same policies, and there's a rich tapestry of debate in this country. But I think the procedural point you raised is actually quite significant. There was cooperation, as you say, under oath, to a very thorough degree. And here there is an incredible stonewalling, which, if you care about holding the government accountable, and in the census case, the Supreme Court, with the Republican-appointed justices, cared about that. It was a rejection of the approach and the lack of transparency from this administration.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.